What's going on, everybody? I'm your boy Retro Bliss, and you are on Retro Bliss Rewind. And we have a very, very touchy, sensitive topic tonight. We're going to be talking about the fact that you're not going to be getting your video games in physical format in the near future. It's inevitable. It's happening. It's happening now, and we're going to talk about it. And so, without further delay, I'm going to bring to the stage Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala, Brian from BD RetroMods, and last but not least, Dr. Scott from Game Closet. What's going on, fellas?
You do not see me. I am not here. Oh, sorry.
I don't see Scott.
Well, you know, this has been, we were going to talk about the Sega Master System. We had some family emergencies on, a couple of us had, unfortunately.
2 weeks in a row?
2 weeks in a row, and I apologize for everybody who has missed the podcast for the last couple weeks, but we've had to set that aside because we need to talk about this because this is a hot topic. And so Sony and Ubisoft has made it official that they're not going to be making physical games any longer. And so they're going bye-bye. And so we're going to be talking about that tonight. We're going to be talking about there are actually pros and cons to both having and not having. But we're going to be talking about that. But we also have a kind of a bullet list of things to talk about. First, let's talk about the announcements. Go ahead, Mike. Let's talk about the announcements by Ubisoft, Sony, and Xbox.
Yeah, well, Ubisoft kind of kicked things off, and this was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Basically said people have to get used to not owning their games, which digital content really is not ownership. It's rental. You own that until they decide to shut down their servers or they decide to, whatever. And then it just doesn't work anymore. And then Sony jumped on that boat and said that they're phasing out their physical support. Microsoft announced that they're laying off all their, or I think they may have actually just done it.
Yeah, their entire
all of
physical
their
division.
1,900 people.
Yeah. And kind of tied to this, and I'm not sure where, well, we'll probably at the end when we talk about the future. Microsoft also announced that a lot of their IPs are going multi-platform. So you'll be able to play Halo on the Switch or the PlayStation or whatever. I mean, Microsoft has been, for all intents and purposes, multi-platform for a very long time. Like you could play all them on Steam, like on PC. But this is pretty big.
It is.
That's what she said.
Well, just to put a finer point on that, because there was another podcast that I heard earlier, and this guy was. I'm going to split a couple hairs on something because this other guy, he had said something like, well, Minecraft, it's multi-platform now too, and it's been multi-platform for a while because Microsoft. Like, wait a minute. It was multi-platform before Microsoft bought it, and Microsoft kept it that way. Yep. So but when it comes to console gaming versus PC gaming or computer gaming, and I'll include Mac and Linux right in on that. When it comes to that sort of a thing, big box PC games, they went away, within the last 10, 15 years and gradually went away. But there was always that ability to download. Same thing with, since the 360 and the PS3 era, you've been able to download your games if you wanted because they had hard drives. They had hard drive space.
Yep.
But when it comes to, is it the same thing? Well, a lot of those PC games, they were much bigger, more intricate, and also there was different I/O as well. So you didn't have this, you have a mouse, you have a keyboard. And now, your consoles, you could hook that stuff up too. But when you have a larger game and it can't, some consoles can't run something as specific. And look at how many parties were out there making PC games, PC and Mac games anyway, versus just narrowing it down to consoles. So I think that, you know, people are trying to apply a broad stroke to that when they're not going, okay, this is why this was this way. But now things have actually become more broad. Now, I'm not in support of any of this because I do like having my physical stuff. But at the same time, you know, I remember getting 2 or 3 DVDs, or even, I think I have one set back there that's 2 Blu-rays, you know, just to simply have your multiplayer or every version of your game. I mean, not every version. The entire game all installed. So multiple discs to install the game. I have no problem having 2 Blu-ray discs that are 50 gigabytes apiece to install all the stuff that I have, save a couple updates. But if this is the way they want to go, and in a way, they kind of started doing this way back when they said, you know what, let's see if we can still charge $50, $55 and not include a manual. Let's see if they accept that. Let's dip our toe in the water and see how that works.
Yeah.
So, well, you know, the handwriting's been on the wall for a while. I was at Target. I was at Target specifically down in Jacksonville, and down in where were we? Anyway, down in Jacksonville, we were was visiting son, and I was looking for Madden 2024. We were gonna go at it, and I could barely find a physical game in Target, but I saw all these cards where you could buy the digital download. They had a bunch of those, but I could barely find.
And why the hell would you go buy that when you could just do it on your console? If you're doing a digital download, why buy that at Target?
Right. Well, when I was doing the research for the podcast today, I found out that Best Buy quit selling all physical media in 2023, and then if I found out that Walmart. Huh?
Up here in Canada, Best Buy still sells games.
Oh, do they? Well, I guess
they do here at the 2 stores near me.
Well, maybe my source is wrong.
Definitely less.
Okay, maybe my source is wrong. I've not seen it. I don't know. Maybe
Are you talking about PC games?
No, and I know PC
console.
games. That's been gone.
Okay, so you're talking about console games.
Yeah.
Best Buy is looking to. All the stores are. I mean,
Walmart,
Target, Best Buy. They've all said their plans are to phase out all the physical.
Well,
stuff.
then I have.
Well,
no
let me
reason to go
share.
to
Let
them
me share
anymore.
a screen real quick. I saw this where Walmart is actually reportedly going to be discontinuing selling in 2024. So.
I'm looking forward to that fire sale.
Yeah. Well, it is happening. It's happening. So, you know, the only thing of it is, you know, how long has it been, especially for these newer platforms? You do buy a game, you put it in there, there's an update, and you know you're downloading some part of the game is on the disc, and then part of it you got to have internet connection to download the rest of the game anyway.
Right. Well, and especially with PlayStation and Xbox, a lot of the times all that's on the disc is a download code.
Yeah, it's just a key.
I bought my PlayStation 5. This was probably a year, like not this previous Christmas, but the one before. Bought one games I thought the kids would like. It's like a shooter kind of thing. Put it in, and there was 56 gigabyte update. The actual, it's like loading off the disc took like 30 seconds, and then, there's an update. No, you're downloading the damn game.
Right.
There's nothing on the disc.
And to your point, Mike, as I said earlier, and I've mentioned this on my show a couple of times, there's a website out there, and it's called doesitplay.org. Now, is it a perfect website? No. But what doesitplay.org does, you can actually search a physical game, or you put it in their search field, and it will actually tell you what is on that disc or cartridge, because even some Switch games, there are some Switch games you got to watch when you go to buy it. It'll say there's no cartridge in here. It's just a code.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it will tell you, like, I think it was like a Call of Duty game that came out last year. It only had like 256 megabytes. That's the key on a Blu-ray that can potentially have between 25 and 50, gigabytes of,
Gigs,
of data. But they're wasting what they could have just put like a single layer DVD. Anyway, I digress. But Does It Play will tell you. It'll tell you, is there anything on the disc? Is the game actually on there? Do you have to download the game? Do you have to have an online? Do you have to have? Is it online only? Are there updates? It'll tell you everything and anything you need to know about that physical disc that you have in your hand, or cartridge per se. So that way you can determine whether or not is this just a key, or if I'm out in the middle of nowhere and all I've got is power and no internet connection, can I
play?
Am I going to ruin Christmas, by telling the kids, okay, you got to play until the turkey's done? You got to go out in the backyard till the turkey's done, and then the game will be done downloading.
That has happened. That has happened in my home for years. Hey, got a new game. Oh, bedtime's not for 2 hours with that end. It's a 5-hour download. It's like,
I just now thought of this. How come we never thought about this before? Why are we not smarter, dear Lord? Before you wrap it and put it under the tree, just put the disc in and load it up.
But you got to take the cellophane off. Then it's not new and fresh.
Yeah, they don't care about the cellophane. I mean,
my kids are old enough; they know.
Well,
they're like, Dad, you opened it. You played this, didn't you?
Like, no, I preloaded your game for you. I promise you, I didn't play. Heck, you know what I used to tell my mom? I used to tell her, she's like, is there a game you want or something? And I'm talking like when I'm an adult. I'd be like, there's a place that I used to go to in Amherst, Ohio. It was called Flashback Games. The place was great. And I'm just going to say hi to Pete Costello if he's out there watching somewhere, the former owner and originator. That place was great. And we're talking, the Genesis era, the Super NES era. I bought everything there. And he would actually... He'd buy your games if they were complete in box, that sort of a thing. He'd give you more money for them than if you just brought in just the cartridge. Yeah. Or, he would have somebody have a game for 48 hours and bring it back in, and they wouldn't have the clamshell or the manual anymore. They'd throw it away. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to give you like $15 less. Anyway, so I told my mom, I was just like, if you're going to buy something for me anyway, go down there. Pete's going to treat you right, number one. Number two, I don't care if it has a cellophane on it. I don't care. Mm-hmm. Find it for the cheapest you can get it for. I don't care if it's used. I'm just going to play the game anyway. It's not like it's a pair of shoes or a pair of underwear.
Okay. Well, I mean, the thing with all this, and to the point that you guys are bringing up, though, I think that's kind of why, as much as we like physical, it's also why, to the point, it's almost not realistic anymore. And it's just because of the practices when it comes to these modern games. So, again, PC's done this for 10 plus years now. Yeah. Like, this is absolutely nothing new. I mean, you got Steam, that's the biggest, game store with it. Where I think the difference, though, is the fact that you do have something like Steam where at least your games are going to be somewhere. Because the thing that we've seen historically when it comes to consoles, and Nintendo's notorious for this, is that new system comes out, oh, we got to hurry up and shut down the old store. Which then, when all this stuff really isn't truly physical anymore, that becomes a problem for just an average person wanting to try to play their game again, and, because example, here's a PS4 game, the PS4 game,
Bubsy.
This is complete. This has everything on it, but yet I might go and buy this, and you'll see here, Smart delivery, aka this is just a key. There's nothing on the disc. And so at that point, why am I collecting that? Because if, God forbid, Xbox would ever shut their store down, how am I going to get it?
You're never going to be able to play. I mean, I can go back there on my shelf right now, and I can put Halo Reach in right now, no updates whatsoever, and I can play. But let's say 15 years from now, when I'm like 900 years old, am I going to be able to go over and grab Halo Infinite off the shelf? Why would I want to play Halo Infinite?
Now, that's actually...
And play it.
Yeah, that's actually a good window should move on to our little like history segment on this, because digital download and streaming is absolutely nothing new. And I know probably most of the guys here, probably most of the guys in the chat, know that streaming, yes, this week's episode is now official, that streaming video games has been around since the second generation. The very first streaming system was the Intellivision Play Cable, and that came out in 1981. And basically it worked the same way as, old modems worked. It worked the same way as the supercharger games on the Atari worked, which is basically an audio signal that gives you ones and zeros. And it would basically, you would have a subscription to a cable channel. It would load up whatever game you wanted to play, and you could play that game. In 1983, Atari got one as well. This is the game line. They had a few different ones. But look at the size of this.
Yeah.
Look at the size of this thing. And this plugs into your cartridge slot, and then it plugs into your phone. It's got a little phone jack on the side.
It comes with a blanket.
The exact same thing. Yeah. It was like a toll number that you would dial, and it would load a program that would allow you to choose games. And then you could do that. And that was on the Atari 2600. And then, of course, probably one of the more famous ones, Scientific Atlanta, is the Sega Channel. So I've got a nice one here, complete with all the warranty and everything.
Yeah,
so you would plug this in, connect it. It was a subscription fee to a channel, and you could download a whole bunch of games. Now, the difference between these and modern digital download and streaming is, with very few exceptions, like the Super Nintendo also had their satellite network. The games that you got and were able to play were the exact same games that you could buy physically. And that's been the case for a very long time. There were a few exceptions. Wily Wars was a Sega Channel exclusive. Now that's a homebrew cart that you can get. Thankfully, somebody found it and saved it. Same with Zelda, this Zelda satellite game, which was basically the original Legend of Zelda, but with Link to the Past graphics. And there is one thing that all of these have in common. Can any of you guys tell me what all of these have in common?
They're old.
They're very expensive paperweights. Yeah. You can't use them anymore. As soon as they shut down the system, you can't do it anymore. And you look back, and yes, Nintendo's been bad, but they've all been bad. How many Xbox Live Arcade games are just lost to history? They're just gone. There's stuff from the Wii U store. I have one. It was a great game where you're piloting this little ship, and like it can be a submarine or a little spaceship kind of thing. And you've got your engineer using the tablet, and somebody's doing the searchlight, somebody's doing the guns, somebody's operating like different parts of the ship, and you move through. It was a fantastic game. Completely gone. No way to get it. It was digital only. And can you imagine how many games would be lost to history if way back in the Atari days they had digital only? Yeah. Even with physical release, there are games that are still being discovered that nobody knew how to, like Red Sea Crossing. There's 2 physical copies known to exist. But if that had been digital only, and the thing is like, oh, it downloads to your console, and then, well, even if the store's gone, if your console's still working, yeah. But how many times have we had to, Brian will probably be with me on this, how many times are you able to fix a console, but you've got to swap the hard drive out of an Xbox? Or you've got to do, like, there's so many different ways to lose that. I'll make one last point before we start going. I believe it was PlayStation 4. It might have been PlayStation 3, but I think it was PlayStation 4. Was the Silent Hill demo, right? You buy a used PlayStation, and it's like $100. You buy a used PlayStation that has that PT demo on it,
yeah,
and that's $500. because it was probably downloaded millions of times, but over time you get a hard drive crash, you've lost it because it got pulled from the store because the Silent Hill game wasn't going to happen. People sell their consoles, so they wipe the hard drive, and they don't know. They just wipe it. Like, hard drives degrade. How many are still out there? I've got a Civil War officer's sword in the other room there. There was probably about 500,000 of those made during the Civil War. I bet there's more of them around than there is that PT demo that was downloaded millions of times.
I have the PT demo still on my...
Which system? 3 or 4?
That is on my PlayStation... I want to say it's my PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I thought so.
It's my white... what's that game? It's my White Destiny PlayStation 4, and it's back in its box. I don't use it. It's up in the it's up in my closet, and because I use my PlayStation either 5 or my Pro now, my 4 Pro. But I can't play the game anyway because I think if it goes to check it online, it won't let me play it. You're locked out. But it's still it's still on the hard drive. So
but even PC games, like PC games, I was a PC gamer for a long time. PC games, a lot of them required patches that you'd have to get from like their websites and stuff. So like I'd have shelves and shelves of PC games, and then their servers would go offline, and then if you didn't save the patch or know where you saved it to, you were done. If you lost it on a hard drive or whatever, if you wanted to reinstall it, you were out of luck.
And that's one thing for online play games, like where you're playing, like, the online features of a game. I can understand that disappearing because you shut these. But if you've got a one-player game, like when they removed Flash, right? So the internet doesn't use Flash anymore. All those Flash games, there were some that I absolutely loved. Gone. Never to be played again, most of them. Ever. So when you go to a situation where nobody's ever actually able to have that full game file, even just the file, you're not allowed to have. Games are going to be disappearing. It's bad. There are so many pros to digital download, but only when in tandem with some actual physical way to own a game.
But, interestingly, though, I'm sure that many people who are watching this currently, the 4 of us here talking now, and anyone who's going to be watching this video in the future, probably, I'd be willing to bet that at least 90 to 99% of the audience would be able to stop buying stop buying games altogether right now that are something that would have to, where you just have a key and download it. You could just go to conventions, go to mom and pop game stores, or just the stuff that's on your shelves and in your closets, in your game closets, alone anyway, and you probably never again have to buy anything ever again, and you'd probably still have tons and tons of stuff to play for the rest of your life. I said to my wife just earlier when we were having dinner, the number one game that she and I go to consistently is Rainbow Six Vegas 2. I said, listen, I have like 13 or 1,400 games total. I'd be willing to bet. And I said, you know what? What if we went into the office right now and both of us picked out 50 games apiece? 50 games. So we have a total of 100 games, no overlaps. How many of and we get rid of everything else. Would we be able to play those 50 games until we're both old and gray and that's it? Will we be satisfied with that? Well, hell, I could probably just do that with 3 games alone, and one of them would just be Halo Reach and the other would be Rainbow Six Vegas 2. There's a lot of us that play the same thing over and over again anyway, but we as a species like to see what's new, what's upcoming, what's new, what's exciting. Not your Atari 2600 Pac-Man blocky crappy graphics, but something that's new and fascinating that's out there. But here's the thing. If you go back to a lot of those retro blocky graphics that all of us love, especially the 4 of us talking here in the chat.
I threw up in my mouth a little bit. I'm sorry.
I mean, look at Retro Bliss's channel to begin with. I mean, this gentleman here, he plays consistently almost every single day. He streams a lot of these classic retro games. I'd be willing to bet that if we had just games only from the first, second, and third generation only for the rest of our lives, games I've never discovered before, I'd never have to look at Microsoft ever again.
At the same time, from an objective standpoint, and I know almost everybody on here is going to disagree, but from an objective standpoint, games now are better than they ever have been. From an objective standpoint, because here's the thing. Pac-Man comes along. Oh, we've discovered maze games. You add an arrow to the quiver. Yeah. Oh, Space Invaders, shooter games, add an arrow to the quiver. All these different things that you can now grab from. And a lot of people see Mr. Chicken, and you know what? You are objectively wrong.
No, I agree with you.
You are objectively wrong because, like, for instance, like anything else, it evolves as an art form.
Right.
Okay? And so, like, we're all dads, right? And I can tell you right now that, we love an Atari 2600 game. For me, it's Space Invaders. Well, okay, I was going to say, Miss Pac-Man for the Atari 2600 for Bliss. Whatever. Me. But, and I understand that it doesn't appeal to you. But as fathers, if all of you can tell me that you've never cried playing a video game, you've never gotten so emotionally invested that you've cried, I guarantee you've never played The Last of Us.
Or you've never played Gears of War 2.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's different. Now you're playing a movie. You are so involved in the character that happens. Your child dies in your arms. It's just Pac-Man will never do that for you.
No. I completely agree with you 100%. The only place I disagree is the technical issues that a lot of these companies are putting out these garbage, incomplete games nowadays.
It's absolutely tons of garbage, but also look at the Atari 2600 library. There's tons of garbage there.
Snake. No, but at least
there's always been tons of garbage.
But at least those games were finished, and mind you, I say they were finished. But when CD Projekt
No, they weren't.
When CD Projekt Red puts out Cyberpunk 2077, and especially it's going to work on the PlayStation 4, no problem. It's going to work on the Xbox One, no problem. And you see the extreme. My son sent me video on his PC, and he had a pretty nice PC at the time. And he's like, you got to see this. And there was like some crazy stuff going on before there were any really good patches. And I'm like, why was this released like this? But still, even in its broken form, that game is still better than what we could have had. So,
I'm talking about games as a whole. I'm not talking about the slew of Call of Duties. No. I'm not talking about all this garbage. I'm talking about real, genuine, like, games have moved from a good time waster where you're trying to get a high score to a real, genuine, emotional experience when done right.
Yep, absolutely.
And you can still have all that retro stuff. There's Shovel Knight was bloody awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Like even racing games, racing games, it's not like Enduro. Now I got a real steering wheel and pedals and brakes, and I'm playing Burnout 3, I'm doing like this on the steering wheel, it feels like I'm really in the car.
Nostalgia aside, and I know everybody watching this podcast is like us, and we're nostalgia. Trust me, a lot of the times would rather play an Atari game or a Nintendo game or something like that. But from an objective standpoint, the best video games now are far superior to the best video games there.
Sure.
Just saying.
Yeah. But that's also what's led us to this situation because because
they're so huge.
Because the thing is to your point, the games of just being simple time killers is not there. Like, they kept like raising the bar to make it worth the, $50, $60, $70 purchase. We got to make a game that's, hundreds of hours, not just a simple, play a few times and call it a day. And, but with that makes a lot more needed resources, not just, staffing and, testing medium storage, things like that, where I think that's just the thing. Console gaming really, and again, people might not like this either. It's just console gaming is really not console gaming anymore.
No, it's not.
Because gaming today, have it be on a computer or a console, is really computer gaming. I mean, they're to a point where they're nearly identical. I mean, and that's the reason why they can easily port stuff over the PC now.
Yeah, they all are Brian. They all are PCs. They just have their own skins on them.
Ever since Xbox and then into 360 and PlayStation 3, they've been PCs.
Right.
That's what consoles are. And the fact of the matter is, and we can kind of move into this like pros and cons and future of gaming, is that there's a reason, like there's PC gaming and console gaming. There's a reason people gravitated towards console gaming, and that's because it's simple. You buy a game, you put it in, it just works. You don't have to tweak settings. You don't have to do any of that.
You don't have to grab a keyboard.
Exactly. Steam Decks do that now.
Yeah.
Steam boxes do that now. And especially now where you've got a situation where PlayStation and Xbox, and to a certain extent Nintendo as well, is, download your game, it's on the thing, it just works. Like Steam just works. It knows the settings of your computer, it knows, like, you set all that stuff, and it'll automatically set your settings for a lot of things. And so what's the difference?
Well, and this is why I think Xbox, or Microsoft, I should say, is looking at the path they're going. I mean, because at the end of the day, I think they've already come to the realization of, hey,
console gaming's dead.
Yeah, it's too blended now. I mean, because again, what you said is 100% right. Like, why I enjoyed playing my, Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis or even PlayStation 1, during time when computer was more becoming, available to play games on and stuff, was because I could just pop it in and it worked. Where, those early days of PC gaming, there was a lot involved. You had to put in 12, floppy disks or whatever to install, and then get patches and different things, where it's like, didn't want to have that hassle. I just want to plug it in, play it, and know it works. But we're not there anymore, and we're never going to go back to that because of, like you said, like it or not, we've just continually have grown in what a video game is nowadays. And and I think, though, that's where it comes to a point. How valid are these consoles anymore? Because again, Steam is very well known. Steam has been around for a very long time. And like, when I think about digital purchases at this point, Steam is about the only store I'm probably comfortable with in that regard, because if I bought something 10 plus years ago, I can still go to it and download it.
What's the other one that's really popular? Is it called GOG?
There's a number of them.
There's
Good
Old Games, GOG.
Yeah.
Now, Good Old Games, you actually download the file and it runs, because I did that for my Red Baron 3D.
And there's
that was a game I loved.
Yeah, a lot of great retro stuff on there. And I haven't been on that store in a long time.
Yeah, so that's a great one. And I think, like you were mentioning, I think really the smartest one, so the big thing is Sony, as an overall company, depends on its gaming division. I think we're going to see a PlayStation 6. Microsoft makes money off of its gaming division, but it does not rely on it. No. So it can get away going to this software. And quite frankly, they make the best controllers. I love my Xbox
it's why
controllers.
They gobbled up Blizzard Activision, because
exactly.
They doubled their own revenue by doing that.
Yeah. And so, they can make all that money, and I don't think you're going to see any more Xbox. I think the Xbox One X is the last Xbox. They might make like a mini version of the digital only one, which was already kind of the mini anyway, but they might do that. But other than that,
they say that they're working on one for 2026
I doubt you're going to see it.
It's a stream,
or it'll be a Steam box.
I was going to say,
it'll be a streaming.
I was going to say it's going to be because again, they're so heavily invested in Game Pass, and they're going to make sure there's some form of a Game Pass machine that's affordable for folks. So
you mean Steam Junior?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess you could call it that, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's been Microsoft's plan even back with the Xbox One, though. I mean, like they were already starting to go down this path. Like they did the Series X because they just knew, well, Series S and X, because they knew they had to have some device for their stuff. But at the end of the day, they really don't care if you're playing what you're playing it on. Have it be a PC, have it be a Switch if Nintendo would let them do it, or be, you know, Sony if Sony lets them put their stuff on there. They don't care. They're not concerned about the hardware. They want the software subscriptions and the software purchases. Yep. So and that's just been their mindset for years now. And but again, I think it comes to a point, like I really struggled with the current setup with consoles to say, yeah, I want to buy my stuff digitally. Because like, let's say we get a PlayStation 6, we get the next Xbox XXX or whatever they want to call it. You know, I
would buy that one. Honestly, I'm not planning on buying the next generation because there's not going to be any physical, but I would buy it if they called it the Xbox Triple X.
If they call it, no, it's just called the Triple Xbox. Done. Yeah. I'm there. And it sells for $69. Yeah.
Watch it now. Did I say PG?
You didn't include PG in this, or maybe you did.
But,
I did.
But I mean, because to that
in the
point,
email I did.
It's just the consoles, the console stores have just not had a good track record of keeping their stuff open.
Right.
Where like at least with Steam, Steam's not going anywhere. You'll be able to download it, and I mean they're established enough where, and it's agnostic enough that, I mean, it's not going to matter. So, you know, moving forward for me,
give me
like,
1 sec.
Would I even get a new console, or do I just get whatever the next Steam Deck box thing ends up being? Because, I mean, I know they're working on another. You know, I mean, I know they released an OLED model here, you know, around Christmas time, but I know they're looking to refresh because there's now more competition. Because I think Asus makes something, Lenovo has something, Nvidia I think has something. So, I mean, I think that's going to become the next step of quote unquote console gaming, because
they're going to be Steam boxes.
Right.
Well, I think I've kind of put a finger on the problem per se, and I think a lot of us, we keep dancing around it, and I've said this a couple of times, but okay, so I remember when you could buy games. Tell us a story, Grandpa. I remember when you could buy games for $50. It would be like, you'd go, and I do, of course, have Rainbow Six Vegas 2 here. So you go into a store, brand new, you'd buy Rainbow Six Vegas 2 for $50, $49.99.
We get it. You like Rainbow Six Vegas 2.
Matter of fact, this is my 4th copy. I just bought it the other day, so it's sitting over there. But anyway, but you open it up. There's your game, and there was DLC for it, and then you've got this. Maybe not a full color manual, but you've got a manual, tell you what you got to do, et cetera, et cetera. You have art, and you have something you can actually put on your shelf and you can see. Because if you go into a store and you see stuff sitting on a shelf, you know it's there, I want that. Or let's say you have your kids and they go, oh, what do you want for Christmas, Jimmy? Oh, there's Rainbow Six Vegas 2, Dad, I'd like that. Okay, fine. But when it comes to a digital library, now I know that people who are extreme PC gamers, and they think that we are the peons anyway, well, all I got to do is just pull up my Steam library and I can show you all my games. And I'd be like, okay, turn the power off. Turn the power off. Let me see your stuff.
If your power's off, you can't play the game anyway, to be fair.
Well, exactly. But at least I can. But
I can know what I want to play when the power comes back on.
If I go to Torg, if I go to Korg's, if I go to CGC, I can walk in there and I can look at all these different booths and I can say, I want that, I'm looking for that. So there's the number one, there's the pursuit of that sort of thing. But as a graphic designer, as an artist, someone who's been drawing on the walls since, at least I could put on my underwear, I make this stuff, okay? I like looking at this stuff. Okay, so that's going away. And then a few years ago, they said, well, you know, you don't need this anymore. We're not giving you that anymore, but we're going to charge you more for it. Okay, so now we're paying $60. So let's take this up to about 10 years ago. Now we're paying $60 for, we're basically getting the disc, we're getting the art, and we're getting your case. So now we're getting rid of the art, now we're getting rid of the case, now we're getting rid of the disc, and you're still going to pay us $70 now. What are you getting? What are you getting? You are getting nothing for $70.
Yeah, well, but again, so I mean, because again, don't get me wrong, I love physical, but we gotta be realistic too that it's not getting cheaper to make a game. I mean, when they're expected to make games now that are 100+ hours, because God forbid they make a 8-hour game, sell it for $50-$60.
Yeah.
Like people lose their minds over it, you know, where I mean, because I remember playing Nintendo games or Atari games that you sit through one sitting and like beat the whole thing. It's like, oh, now what? you know, and
I mean, you can beat Star Fox in like 35 minutes.
Right. You know, or I just bought
every path and every. Come on.
Yeah, I just got
That's at least an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, a game can be way too short, and a game also can be way too long. I recently saw an article because they were making reference to Grand Theft Auto 6, how it's costing like what did I see, $1 billion to develop this game over the past X amount of years, and it's not going to be coming out for another year or two. And the article basically was saying, are games getting too big? And I can agree that games can get too big. Now, there are people out there who can sit down, who maybe they do have kids. Maybe they don't even, they're not even aware the kids are in the house anymore because they're playing their games so much that it's just like, do we have a dad? Oh yeah, that's that guy that plays the games in the back room. That's because all they do is play games. And I'm talking about the neglectful father or the neglectful mother who don't give a crap about their kids, and all they do is play their games, or they smoke their crack, or whatever their vice is, they do it. But a time waster is a time waster, no matter if it's Space Invaders and you're playing, or Asteroids for the 2600 and you're playing that until it flips. You know, as long as I get up and take care of my family and take care of what I have to do and go to work, then I'm a responsible human being. But the second I turn my attention away and put it into a game that's going to be 200 hours, 300 hours, and I got to go through every nook and cranny of it, listen, as long as you're being a responsible adult and you're taking little bites of it, that's fine. Make the game as big as you want. But this article was saying games are getting too big. You're putting way too much time, way too much money into something that is so monstrous.
Can I say something about that?
Second lives.
Let me say something about that. You know, technology is such that they, you know, a lot of computers and stuff, they're, you know, are developing the games themselves. The computers are doing this. You know what I mean? Like you can like put in a storyline and whatnot. And
random generated,
and it generates the game itself. You know, the software generates a lot of the game code, because code is reused game after game after game. It's just reskinned. You know what I mean? And so it's easy to make a 200-hour game. Yeah. So yeah, I get that, Scott. You know, I understand what you're saying. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So like, are we talking about any of the pros about the digital?
So
pros is convenience.
So before we get
there are a lot. There are a number of pros.
There are a lot of pros. There are pros.
Yeah.
Wait. Brian wanted to say something first.
Yeah, he hasn't talked to us. Let's let Brian talk.
No, I mean, I just want to go back to the point though. What Dr. Scott mentioned with pricing is that the thing is because you know I get it and I hear it all the time, but there's something we got to realize is that video games is one of the things that have been quote unquote inflation proof for a very, very long time. So the fact that, yes, some things, corners have been cut like a manual or things like that, and it's now 50 or 60. I mean, you got to remember what we were paying for Atari games back when it was Atari. How much we were paying for NES cartridges.
50 to 60.
Right. Yep. And if you take that into inflation, that would be like the equivalent of like 120, 130 $140 today
for a game that was programmed by one guy in 6 months.
Right. So when you look at that, I think the pricing of gaming is honestly, when you think about entertainment, has been some of the cheapest entertainment out there. I mean, because
And
again,
especially with these big games that you get a lot out of. Like I
Right.
lost myself in Fallout 4. I have weeks into Fallout 4 from back in the day.
Yeah.
Like,
But if you,
And I happen to know that you're a responsible adult too. I know that I know that your family knows where you're at, and you know where they're at.
yeah, in the basement playing Fallout 4.
Yeah. but you see what I'm saying. And Brian,
Yeah.
you're 100% correct. You know, when prices do go up, that's fine. But here's the thing that made me crazy. As a graphic designer, when I have to spec out how much this is going to cost and have to go to different printing houses to see how much this is going to cost. Now, mind you, I'm not talking like something where I need to print hundreds of thousands of copies of this. You know, when at the places that I've worked before, when I have to, like there was one insurance place that I used to work as their in-house graphic designer, I would have to print 2,000, and sometimes this would last for about a year. I would have to print off 2,000 of these beautiful, and I'm saying beautiful because they were beautiful, these beautiful welcome packets for people who had who were new to the personal lines company. If you're having car insurance and, you know, not commercial insurance, that sort of thing, personal insurance with the company. And mind you, we were just an agency, and you'd open up this packet and there would be like several things inside that I designed that had a lot of information on it about your policies and things like that. And that's not even stuff that's coming from your insurance carrier. So I'd have to take this material that I designed and I'd have to have it printed by somebody, and that does come with the cost. And that's not even just the cost that they're paying me, the guy who's designing it. That's having so now
you can export a JPEG and be done.
Right. When you get rid of this and your game is $50, where's my extra $5? That's all I'm saying. Why is the game now not $45?
But that's what Brian was saying about
that's
the inflation.
The point. That's what I'm getting at, though, is because of the inflation. Is that
right?
This didn't come with a manual.
Right.
Not surprising.
Thank you.
Not surprising. Yeah. Thanks, Atari, for cheaping out.
I want to get to some of the pros.
Absolutely.
I got a
Wayne
list.
Gretzky is one of the top pros of all time.
That's not hockey either. Canadian.
I the pros are really simple. I mean, it's why we've moved digitally on music, why we've moved digitally on movies. I mean, all that stuff. It's just because you don't have to try to go to a shelf, grab something, put it in, and play it. Like, you know, if it's
game
digital,
availability, it's right.
I mean, it's right there at your fingertips.
If I move, I don't have to pack all this stuff up and take it with me.
Right.
I pack up that console or that computer and I take it with me. There's a guy I used to work with, and he actually said, this was on his Xbox One. He said, I do not own one physical game at all. And when he moved, because he moved in with his girlfriend, he said, I'm only taking this and that's it. I don't have to take any games with me. And I said, Terry, that's brilliant.
Now, another one I was thinking, you know, all the games you see behind Scott there, you know, I'm sure he takes care of them, as you could see, as he did with.
Well, that was my fourth or fifth copy of that. And this is
doing this little number.
Cement.
But, you know, cartridges, CDs, DVDs, whatever, you know, they degrade over time. And so even if you do have a physical media, over time, they do degrade. As long as the servers are up.
That said, I don't know how long you guys have been watching YouTube videos, but there used to be a guy named Ben Heck.
Yeah.
And he bought one of the cartridges that was buried in the garbage, and he was able to fix that and play an Atari game from that dump find.
Well, back then they made them pretty darn good. You know what I mean?
But that's what we're saying. Like the fact that this will last 50 years, no problem. How many servers are still going to be up in 50 years?
Well, that's a good point. It is. And like I said, it depends on who takes care of what, you know. But still in all, they do degrade. They still do degrade, you know.
They do degrade, but I mean, they have gotten, I mean, again, like cartridges like what Mike's shown. I mean,
Blu-rays
cartridges themselves, I mean, yes, they could go bad, but normally because of how they're designed, I mean, they're going to last.
They're solid state. They don't require a charge.
Right.
There are going to be some of these that in 5,000 years will still work. Some.
And
Not many, but some.
If something goes wrong
Discs,
with the cartridge,
on the other hand, discs aren't the same.
Well, what if you're a tree hugger? What if you're a tree hugger?
Huggers love digital.
They love digital because you're leaving a less of a carbon footprint. You know, you have the only thing that's running are the servers. Of course, you don't get your manuals.
Well, that server has a larger carbon footprint than actually making the discs and stuff.
They might.
It does.
I don't know.
It does.
Yeah, just real quick, I was looking back in the chat. I see Poe put a message in here to me with the they just announced all controllers are going to be digital from now on. Amico tried that, and we saw how that turned out.
Oh, I reviewed it. If you want to go to my channel after this and take a look, there is not a single person in my family that likes playing on their cell phone screen. Not a single person in my house liked that.
Yep.
But another thing too, if the games die, so do the consoles. So.
But to Dad's point there is that's the issue with going digital right now is that, you know, depending on where you're buying your stuff from, it could be a problem. And that's where, like I said, I think Steam is your safest venue for that right now. But like if you're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on digital content for your Switch or PlayStation or whatever, I would be concerned that, you know, give it a few years and after they end of life the console, and you may not have the store anymore to go get it, and then you're going to depend on, you know, the quote unquote, you know, black market people trying to find ways to make a third party store for it, and you know, and stuff. So,
well, PT Barnum did say there's a sucker born every minute, so. You know, vote with your wallet, you know, don't be a sucker.
Yeah. What about another thing that I had written down as a pro is the faster gameplay experience. If you have a digital, once you've downloaded it, you know, they usually boot right up. Like you say, it's usually a PC-based console that's run those bad boys. You know, they usually, you know, as long as you don't have an update, which...
Well, but the problem too, though, is at least now this is probably more of a system thing than a game-specific thing. But I find at least once a month I got to wait for an update on my modern systems. And it's like, what the hell? I just want to sit down and play games. I got 45 minutes. I don't want to spend 15 of it downloading an update.
If I turn on my Xbox, if I turn on my Xbox One or my Series X, even once a week, it will always tell me, oh, there's an update. And I'm like, are you kidding me? If I turn on my Dreamcast, there's no damned update. I mean, come on. I mean, but I don't know.
Well, again, it all comes to the point that, you know, games have become bigger, more
evolved.
They've evolved. So now they require, again, consoles were loved because it was a much more convenient way to play over PC gaming. But now, like I said, it's blurred. This generation has blurred it, and now the move to digital just really, you know, proves that point. And
well, and to add to that, and like you were mentioning at the start of the show, we've already been, even if you buy physical, you've already been playing digital for at least 5 years, because almost everything you buy on a disc is not completely on the disc.
Although that is true, Brian, can you hold up your Infinite one more time? Now, the nice thing about this game here is, even though it's just a key, that key is always going to work as long as that server is available. So if I go buy that brand new and it's on the shelf the day it came out, it's going to cost $60. But if you go to buy that game right now on a shelf, brand new, it's right around, I think, $40 last I saw it, maybe $45. And you can also get them used. Yes, so you're buying that used key.
But that's also why they're wanting to go digital, because they don't want that, you know, they don't.
And then when they shut down this server, they can charge you to buy the same game again on this server.
Yes.
What about like
Which Nintendo already does?
Yes.
Well, one thing you won't have to worry about anymore is backward compatibility.
Yeah, because
Well, you kind of do though.
Why?
Well, okay. Once we move to an entire like Steam environment, sure, but there's still like you still need a good emulator. Like Nintendo is not going to release a Steam box that is backwards compatible with your Nintendo 64 games. That's a tough system to emulate.
well, I still have a problem with paying a subscription service for something that I can just buy one time, and that's my problem.
Oh, the worst Assassin's Creed you got to show off. Come on.
Well, I only bought it because at the place I was at this past week, the one place I got it's the Steelbook edition. I already have it, two different versions anyway. I have the regular edition, and it's not even unwrapped, and then I got the
Yeah.
remastered one. But this one for $4, I mean, I got that disc is broken anyway. I got all this nice stuff in here. But the unfortunate thing was when I bought it, the place it was an antique mall. I don't know if you can see that. No, you're talking about degradation of discs. You see that right there? Yeah, that's actually separation. So I didn't get to see that before I bought it. But I have another disc coming for $3. But the whole point of that is I own it. I can put it in any time I want, and it's not a recurring cost to me every single month.
Yeah.
And again, I think it just all depends on your way of wanting. Like, I don't have an issue with subscription services if they're priced right and they got a good selection of stuff. Because again, now full disclosure, my son plays it so much more than I do. But I mean, I have Xbox Game Pass, which is used on our gaming computer and our Xbox consoles. I mean, he loves it. I mean, because he can just go download a game, try it, and he might only play it once or twice, but great, because I'm glad I didn't spend $30-$40 on it or $60 on it and end up not really liking it, and now can do something else. I mean, I like the whole subscription service if we don't get to a point where we're at now with like streaming video, because like back when it was just Netflix and a couple others, it was great. But now it's to a point where everyone and their brother has their own streaming service channel.
Yeah. Now instead of one place, you're spending $20 a month. You're spending $300 a month on all these different services.
Yeah. I mean,
all right, guys, we're getting close to an hour, and we haven't really talked about what we think you guys' predictions for the future.
We kind of did.
Yeah, we pretty much all predicted that this is the way it's going to go all the way. But I think one thing that we didn't touch on is there are companies out there like I forget the guys who make the Evercade, Blaze. You do have companies that are coming out with physical cartridges and stuff like that, and you're always going to have somebody around like Simply Limited and 8-Bit and
well, yes and no. Yes and no.
Yeah.
Because again, if physical media is not available anymore, they're not really going to be able to make a limited run version of said game. You know what I mean?
Limited run, they do stuff for older consoles. They do release NES carts and Nintendo 64 carts and stuff like that. So they will, but just not with current generation because there won't be physical. Yeah.
What about video game stores?
You're all going retro or dead.
Right. I mean,
they won't have a choice.
Yeah.
But then once they sell their stock, it's like there's nothing new coming in.
Specifically, so like I said, I think we've got one more generation of consoles left. Whether or not Xbox properly participates, I don't know. Sony will, because they depend on their gaming division really badly. If it is not a success for them, I think Sony as a company is in dire straits within 10 years from now. Yes, Mr. Poe, limited run. I'm very frustrated with their delivery times. I've gotten stuff that I ordered in like 2020. Nintendo, I mean, they kind of have to keep going their route. I think they'll stick with mobile, but I think even them, they're going to slowly be losing because everything's going to go to Steam boxes. Everything's going to go to some kind of Steam-based system. And for me, it'll be really, really, really weird when I start playing Nintendo games on something like this.
Well, interestingly though, I do buy digital games, but I usually only buy them when I can't find them physically or they're super expensive, like The Gardens Between. Wonderful game, but try to find a physical copy of it. It's very, very expensive.
Well, and there's games like VR games like Beat Saber or Swordsman VR. I saw a limited run for Swordsman VR. I missed it, but I saw it was a digital download, so I just downloaded it.
Right, and if I can find, because sometimes the one thing I do like about the Nintendo store is I will get emails saying, hey, there's something in your list that's on sale, and that's when I buy it. And it'd be like, oh, it's 99 cents, it's $2. Then I'll buy it. I'm not buying it for $35. I'm just not doing it. I'm no cheapskate, kind of like Jack Colton from Romancing the Stone. I ain't cheap, but I can be had.
Well, guys, I think that might wrap it up for the show. I think it was a very interesting topic, to say the least. Actually, a very sobering one for me. I'm getting old though, so I've got enough video games to last me.
Yeah.
I think we're all in the same boat where we're all old enough that if we stop, like, I'm pretty sure that this current generation is the last new consoles I'm going to be buying. I have literally 50 years of video games that I can play. And I will be happy until I am old and gray and dead.
And you still got the homebrew market too. That on a lot.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That are, but yeah, I mean, it's just at the end of the day, console gaming as we know it just isn't going to be there come next gen. I mean, it's just as simple as that, and it's really kind of already happened this gen.
I think predictably for me, I think Nintendo for the next gen, I think that they're still going to have something physical, and that's when Nintendo will finally become, for the first time since the Super Nintendo, I should say, it'll become my primary system. My tertiary.
Yeah, I don't know, Po. I don't think they have a choice, but with this, because it's out there. They're making a Switch 2 or whatever they decide to call it. I mean, I don't think they have a choice but to do it yet for another time around. But I think after that, I think they might just say, you know what? Here's a new device. It's longer it's not backwards compatible, and it's going to be digital only in our own store. But
you have to buy it if you want to play Mario, Zelda.
Exactly. Because Pokemon. That's the thing. I mean, I think Nintendo will go to their grave before they multi-platform.
And they're the only one that could succeed with it.
Yes.
Yep. They do their own thing. They dance to their own drum.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a pretty awkward drum, but
it is.
Sometimes it's great.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for hanging out. For everybody who's watching, thank you for tuning in. Just to let you know, there are links in the description for Mike and Dr. Scott, their YouTube channels. Be sure you like and subscribe. Go to this channel and go to their channels and subscribe as well. And also to Brian from BD RetroMods. He has some amazing controllers. He just announced the availability to his 4-button Atari controller he developed for the Atari 2600 Plus this week. I have one. It's an amazing controller. I haven't done my review yet on it. I plan on doing one very, very soon, and it's a great controller. But anyway, be sure to do that, and I appreciate all you guys being here, and I thank all of you guys for being members of the panel, as always. So with that, you guys have an awesome evening, and we'll see you next time on Retro Bliss Rewind. We'll take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.